Here in video 19A, I introduce the structure and style of research articles to prepare for the analysis that we'll do next. First, the components of a research article include the title, which is what's entered into a public database and is very helpful for students or for scientists to understand if they want to read the article. An abstract, which is also entered into the public database that addresses the questions, methods, conclusions, and significance of the article. And then the meat of the article. We'll talk about the background and introduction, which provides context to the article and specifically should address two logical arguments. One is, why are the conclusions novel? And the other is, why are they significant? And both of these must be in the context of prior knowledge, so they should have a lot of citations. The methods then describes how the experiments and analyses were performed, whereas the results and accompanying figures really describe the bulk of the data and any preliminary analysis of how the data is interpreted, generally to call what we refer to as direct conclusions that are just direct interpretations of the data with very little outside knowledge. Then the conclusions and discussion provide further analysis or citations that describe how the data is interpreted in the context of prior knowledge to draw indirect conclusions that are generalizing then to more important questions. So the whole point of our section on literature analysis is to address the question of how much we can trust research articles. So first we should consider this idea, are they objective or persuasive? So in one way they're written objectively. The closest things to opinions in an article should be hypotheses that should be tested. That is, authors are really intended to be objective and try to represent what's happening in an unbiased way. However, they're also a type of persuasive writing, like a 5-paragraph essays. That is, they should present arguments, hopefully unbiased arguments, that address why the questions asked are significant, why the findings are novel, and to what degree we know the direct and indirect conclusions are true. Keeping in mind as we read this, though, that articles are unavoidably biased. That's the work that they've been spending time on, and it's hard, and they have a lot of incentives to state that these things are highly significant, highly novel, that the conclusions are true with high levels of certainty. There are a lot of rewards structured in to argue these points, and so it can be very difficult for people to remain unbiased in this situation. For these reasons, your job is to understand and to evaluate their arguments rather than just to take their statements at face value. As we go through this analytic process, we will be talking a lot about what authors said and what they meant, and so we want to talk about some common definitions and expectations about how we describe or repeat the author's wording. So direct quotes and indirect quotes are very similar. They use exact or close wording, and they're indicated that they're a quote by either placing it in quotation marks or by using attributing words like the authors argued that or he said that, something that indicates that you're then using their wording. So in both of these cases, of course, we must cite the original article. And I will say that in scientific writing or even analyzing scientific writing, we usually only use these when needed to indicate the choice of wording by the author or to indicate exactly what conclusion we are talking about in it. More generally in scientific writing, the most common way of referring to other articles is to paraphrase. So paraphrase means using your own words to describe someone else's ideas or data. We still must cite the original article. If we're paraphrasing them, we have to attribute that this is their ideas or their conclusions. This is usually how we describe scientific writing, a little less than always in the process we'll go through in this class, because of the fact that we're actually evaluating what they said as well as what they meant. But paraphrasing is most effective because using your own words allows you to pick words that are exactly appropriate to the context that you're trying to describe, rather than something that really was used for a different situation. Then the last thing is that plagiarizing means using someone's words without quotation marks or attributes. So if you actually quote them, but you don't indicate it's a quote, even if you cite them, that's considered plagiarizing because you're writing as though they were your own words without attributing the words to them. That is, you're plagiarizing their phrasing. Also, either quoting or paraphrasing without a citation is considered plagiarizing because you're taking credit for the ideas. So this first one, using their words, you take credit for their words. And the second one, we're paraphrasing without citation, you take credit for the ideas, and you should never plagiarize. So Wendy's rule of textbook, my concept here about when do you need to cite, is that you can paraphrase without citation if the information can be found in undergraduate textbooks.